In this lecture, I'm going to show you how to enable auto-configuration, or sometimes called SLAAC, and it's a type of IPv6 addressing. And what it does is it's based on selecting a layer 3 device such as a router or a layer 3 switch and assigning a static IPv6 address to an interface on that subnet. And what happens is when you enable SLAAC on that router interface, it will send router advertisements to all the hosts on that local segment or local subnet. Typically what you would do is you'd typically, for practical purposes, have a layer 3 switch and assign IPv6 addresses to the different subnets, and the RAs would be sent out to the hosts on each of those subnets. So for this example, I'm just going to start with router 1 and show you how the hosts get an automatic address. And then they'll get a link local address and a global unicast address. So the first thing I do is I select router 1 and go to the CLI. I'm going to sign on. So start to configure terminal. So what I'm going to do is, the first thing I need to do is enable IPv6 packet forwarding on the router globally. So I do that with unicast routing. It's a global command and it enables IPv6 packet forwarding on that router 1. Next thing I want to do is, because 00 is the interface on the local segment for all these hosts, I need to configure auto configuration on that interface. So I'll go with interface FA00, and what I want to do is I want to assign an IPv6 address, as I had mentioned, to initially put it on that interface. And so what happens is, when you assign a manual IPv6 address, it's going to send out the subnet or prefix for that local subnet to all the hosts. In this case, this is the global unicast address. It's got a 2001 address. So 2001 DB8 3C4D1, that's the subnet portion, and 3 is the host ID. So it's similar to 192.168.1.3, where 1 is the actual subnet. But the actual network address portion is the first 4 right to 1. So what happens is that's assigned to 00. Now I want to enable SLAAC, or auto configuration. So that is done with IPv6 address auto config. And I'll go in no shut. It's a layer 3 interface, so I want to bring that up. There it is. State change to up. So what happens at this point is that interface now is activated. It's going to start sending RAs or router advertisements to all the hosts that are not currently configured with any IP address. So going to host 1, I'm going to go to desktop, and I'm going to use a command called IPv6 config/all instead of ipconfig. ipconfig is for IP4 addressing. IPv6 is for IP6 addressing. So currently what I've got, the physical address is the MAC address, the link local address is automatically assigned, and there's also a loopback address. So anytime any IPv6 interface that's enabled always gets 2 mandatory addresses, a link local address and a loopback address. That's the 0 address there. And so what happens is, when this device, this router 1 interface, starts sending router advertisements, it sends the subnet portion, so the host 1 knows what subnet it's on, and the host also will generate its own host ID or host identifier based on its local MAC address on the network interface. So what happens now is, for network convergence purposes, I have to select fast forward so that the router advertisements are updated. Still not updated. So this is something to do with packet tracer. Typically it would be a little faster than this. It's still working on it. Fast forward time. Sure, it's still showing link local. So this just has to do with packet forwarding on packet tracer. So going to the interface, it's up. There's the address there, and this address is up. There it is there. It's auto config. IPv6 gateway is already set up. Go to router 1. Just verify my work here. Show run. So unicast routing is set up. And there's the interface there. So everything's okay there. The interface is showing is up. And there it is there. So IP6 address, you notice that there it's got a 2001, and the last four groups are actually the host ID. If I go to host 2, there it is there. It's the same thing. And if I go over here to host 1, for example, and if I do the same command, now it shows up. It'd be a little faster on a standard network, an actual real network. So IP6 is, so there's the 2001 is the global unicast address. If I go over to host 2, do the same thing. And there it is there. So it's actually got three addresses. It's got the loopback address, the link local, and the IP6 address. And that's auto configuration.